Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are creating the ultimate beginner's guide to city skylines by creating the city of Trattoria. And in the previous episode, we began our liberal arts campus. And in this episode, we are going to take this campus to a level 5 and well integrated with the neighborhood. But there was something pointed out in the comments that I need to address. And that was a comment by Chris Agamo, who mentioned that each of the individual university styles actually do have a purpose. The unique facilities that come with each of these actually provide a city benefit. And because of that, your choice does matter. That said, this is something that I guess I never really realized. I generally chose university campuses based on the aesthetic of the city, and the nice thing about that is it generally lines up well with the type of city that you're producing. So we're going to go through these quickly, and I will show you the benefit that you gain by reaching prestigious level, which will unlock all the buildings. Do know that you do unlock the first unique faculty building, or facility building, or faculty building rather, at Unrecognized, the second one at Renowned, and the third one at Prestigious. So for the trade school, you get the Police Academy, which will actually increase your patrol car count and jail capacity at Unrecognized. At Renowned, you will unlock this School of Tourism and Travel, which will increase your income from commercial zones. And at Prestigious, you unlock the School of Engineering, which reduces your clean and wastewater consumption. So benefits there. Here at the Liberal Arts School, what we will be unlocking is the School of Education at Unrecognized, which increases the student capacity and helps educate more efficiently. The School of Environmental Studies at Renowned, which will reduce overall garbage accumulation in the city. And then the School of Economics, which will increase the revenue generated from office zones. And then for university, at Unrecognized, you get the School of Law, which will reduce the police department upkeep and the overall city crime rate. The School of Medicine at Renowned, which will increase the ambulance count and help your healthcare system run more effectively. And then the School of Science at Prestigious, which will reduce city pollution and electricity consumption. So very, very useful buildings, and they could really be the difference in making your city the type of city you want it to be. So my apologies, and again, one more huge shout out to Chris Agamo. So we're going to proceed along with this university, but there's one thing that happened in between the last save and this load that I can't seem to figure out, and that is I have multiple districts that disappeared. So unfortunately, what this means is that we are going to be moving at a faster clip than normal because we're back to level 1. Now, we're going to need to make sure that our policies are back in place. And just another thing to point out that was mentioned in the comments, you don't need to max out this budget. I'm doing this to ensure that I have as good a chance to create an academic work as humanly possible. So I'm doing that very purposefully. You could, by all means, lower that as low as you want, but just recognize that your chance of creating that work, if you dedicate no money to it, 31%. So it'll take you longer. It'll still happen eventually, but it's going to take you longer. So just something to keep in mind. But I want to keep this moving, and now we have a little bit of extra work to do. So what I'm going to start out with is I want to create this here because we're going to add some campus buildings. I do see a little bit of oddness here that I don't like. So we have a lumpy here, and then I thought I liked this, the lack of symmetry here. I don't. So we're going to fix that right now. I'm going to temporarily move this over here and put this right here, which will leave this feeling very symmetrical. And that's what I'm hoping for. Then when we detail at the end of this, we'll see that was a choice that you'll understand the choice a little bit more at that point. So we should start out by getting some of these unique buildings in place, these unique faculty buildings, these unique facilities. So what we're going to do is look at our terrain again and find a good place for these. So we're going to keep these near our administration building. So we'll start out with our School of Education. Again, this is going to help with our education system. So I'm curious, why don't we find a school and see what this actually does to it? So there's a school right here. And the capacity is currently 300. So let's place this building. Ooh, and it's so large. We're going to need to actually give that a little bit more thought. And I might cross the street with it. Because the only other option I have is really to start taking out some of these campus buildings, which is not something I'm very excited about. So I've made this approximately the same length on either side. Now I'm just going through and trying to create my symmetry here. I'm using my guides, and it's making it very simple to make this symmetrical. Then using my curved road tool to make that curve and making the connection. Nice and clean. I'm going to remove this landscaping too. We know we'll need to do this at some point. Okay, so now I at least have a bit of room to build some of these facilities. And what we're going to do is we're going to need to preserve some of this. And I didn't look at the terrain. And look at that. That is not going to be what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and I'm going to smooth a significant portion of this. And because I didn't respect the topography, we're going to need to go back and take some of this out. Thankfully, if you use your guides, it's not that difficult to clean things up after the fact. And now if we look in here, we're doing pretty good. We've got a dip in the middle, but that's easy to take out. And then we've got this little dip in the road. We could fix that if we absolutely wanted to. Don't have to, but it's an easy fix, so why not? All right, so we're going to place our School of Education, and I think we're just going to put that right here. This actually might warrant extending this out just a bit. And we'll certainly need to extend our campus area out. That's a given at this point. So we've got that. And there are a multitude of problems with this building, so I want to get this connected right off the bat to see the impact it has on our education system. And I'm going to create a temporary power line here just so that the building is operating. So now that we have this, it's increased our university capacity, so that's good. But what has it done to our elementary schools? You'll see that the effect is, rather than having 300 students, this now has 426 as a capacity. So that's a pretty significant increase. So that's good. What that's going to do is improve our education pipeline generally. So I talk a lot about that. And now we could even decommission some schools if we wanted to. We'll leave them because we know that we're going to need these schools eventually. But that helps with our high school availability as well. And it's ultimately going to mean that we need a bigger university because we have more students that are eligible. So the other building that we've unlocked is this School of Environmental Studies. Curious if this will fit over here? It will, but it'll really stick out. And that's not something I'm incredibly excited about. What we might do though is this is going to be a very iterative process. Why don't we relocate a couple of these temporarily? And then we'll come back over here with our School of Environmental Sciences. And I think that we could make this fit over here and still have it look fairly attractive. No, I don't like that. So again, this is all personal preference. So there's no right or wrong answer here, but I don't like the way that this looks. So I'm going to relocate this again temporarily. And I think what I'm going to do is grade a bit here to try to make a level pad. So there are two ways that I can go about this, and the way that's going to be easiest with my soil availability will be to decommission this road and terrace this back. We'll have to move this, again temporarily, and then I'll extend that back. Now I'm going to move this school back over here, and I need to give it some space, and I want to look at the terrain here because I could have some significant issues. And you see that there's some lumpies and bumpies. I'm going to try to just scoot this over until I don't have those issues, or at least until they're manageable. That's probably as good as it gets for me. Let's see if I can improve this. Yeah, it's not gonna be great there. Okay, well, another approach would be to extend the campus over here a bit, and that is probably what we're gonna do. Like I mentioned, these are incredibly large buildings, and they require a great deal of space. So what we're gonna do is we'll extend this over here, and then I'm gonna steal some soil And this is another spot where we could terrace, and we probably will end up terracing to a certain extent. Before I place that, I want to place a path, because I know that this is something that we're going to want access to in the future. So I'll place that there, and then I won't inadvertently get this too close, so I can at least see now what I'm doing. So we've got that there, and that's looking good. I like that. So I'm going to once again terraform a bit. Let's get this road to be extended out just a bit further. Again, just personal preference. I think it'll look a little bit nicer. Then I'll pull this back. You see, I went a bit too far there. We'll fix that eventually. Okay, Lee's more nature, less traffic is leveled up. I'm going to hold off on getting any more of those notifications for the time being. We are going to address leveling up some of our previous facilities that we constructed in the next episode, where we cover mass transit. We're going to certainly dive into both of those, and that brings up a good point. I'm likely to hold off on addressing mass transit at the university in a significant way until the next episode. So this in School of Environmental Studies, if we take a look again at this, what this building does, so this building reduces garbage accumulation. So we should be able to directly look at our trash consumption, our status with the building on. We're in a pretty good place. 178,000, 179,000 units a week. If we were to turn this off, let's see what happens. Wow, that is a jump. That is huge. So we're going to turn that back on because that's really important for us. So we're going to leave that building there, and that is a huge benefit. I did increase the speed. Again, we're going to need to try to progress through our milestones, so this will be helpful. Let's see where we're at with our campus attractiveness. We're in an okay spot. We're going to need to work on improving that, though, as we go through the build. So let's extend this over, and let's move some of this stuff back where it was. Okay, looking good over here again. And we can leave that on the side here. That works for me. Might relocate that. Actually, why don't we try to hide this a bit? We will take this. So this is the groundskeeping. We'll put that close to the neighborhood. Hide it behind the cafeteria. So maybe not great for them, but good for us. So next, we've got some other buildings that we can place that we haven't added yet. So let's see what we have available to us. So we have an auditorium. I do not believe that we've placed that yet. We have our gymnasium, but we do not have our auditorium. So let's go ahead and place an auditorium. It's a pretty good location for that. I am a little curious though. How would this fit back here? It wouldn't. So that would be another interesting place for it, I think. Maybe back here. Yeah, we had that issue with the asymmetry, I think. Well, yeah, terrain is probably our limiting factor back here. So let's hold off on that. We will continue to maintain that over here. And let's look at what our topography is like over here before we move that. So this is another one of those difficult angles to hit. So I'm going to try a couple of things. I don't know that I'll be successful. This is probably the best way of dealing with it if we're going to deal with it at all. And that is, we can just have some bends. Now here, I want to improve this if I can. So what we're going to do is we'll extend this past here, and then I'll curve this over, and then I'll use the curved road tool, come over, find that guideline, and make that connection there. And that's a little bit more natural in my opinion. Looks a little bit nicer. The other thing that would be nice to do would be to make a connection direct here. I noticed one thing after the build. So I was clicking around and there were no people that were nobody could use this connection here. So in light of that, why don't we make some sort of improvement in this area so that there is a direct connection. So this connection should work. Let's test it out. We'll use our Pathfinder. There we go. People are using it. So a little convoluted, but it works. We've got our auditorium, a couple of lumpies and bumpies, but we can resolve these ones. These ones aren't bad at all. And we'll likely need to do so with landscaping, which we will get to at the end of the episode. So now we've got this started, and I'm really concerned about the attractiveness of the campus. And interestingly, we did not level up. And the reason for that is we did not get an academic work, which is really disappointing, but it happens. I do think that I'm going to let this sit for just a moment and attempt to get to the next level by waiting. Now, in fact, it has been about an hour-ish, and now we're finally back at level 4 acclaimed. So the big issue trying to level any of these up is going to be academic works and students. Attractiveness, you have a lot of control over. The other two, you have less control over. So for academic works, you're going to want to take a look, and so I've pumped up the number of academic staff I have to try to get this moving. The other way that you can get more academic works, if you look at this, is to have students. So we know that we need to have 1,800 students to get to the next level. And interestingly, for every 500 students you have the chance to generate one academic work. So it would make sense that we try to do our best to raise our student population. So the first place you start there is looking at your academic pipeline. And what you see is we have plenty of elementary availability. High school availability is not great. It's teetering, it's on the edge. And then we have lots of overhead for our campus. So I think that the first thing we're going to do is start out by placing one high school. We have one here. I want to add one more in this general vicinity. And we'll add a couple of tennis courts over here as well, just to kind of round this campus out. There we go. And we could add fencing to this to make it look a little bit more legitimate. So why don't we do that? There we go. So this should get us, yes, now we have plenty of high school overhead. Our capacity at our high schools is significantly better than it used to be, so that's going to be helpful. But there's more that we can do. So we should take a look at our policies and this education boost policy. I want to show you what it does. So right now, when we look at our info, we've got 1,365 students. I'm going to enable this policy, and then let's see what happens. And look at that. The population jumped by about 80 just in a couple of seconds. So that is something that is a huge benefit, and it just keeps going up. Holy cow. So what the education boost policy does is it has your the educational the high school students basically decide to prioritize going to college over going to directly into the workforce. But if you're going to do this, you really should also look at Industry 4.0 if you have the Industries DLC. And what this will allow you to do is send some of those educated workers to the industrial areas and really complete that pipeline there. While we're in here, why don't we also add in industrial space planning? So Industry 4.0 is going to increase the production output by 50%, reduce the number of workplaces, and allow you to employ educated workers in the industrial areas. And space planning will cost you per tile. However, it's going to, again, double the amount of goods produced. So this is 100% more than before with less workers. So we're gonna see some changes to our RCI as a result. Okay, so now we need to respond to the rest of our needs at our campus. Our student population is already almost where we need to be. Our attractiveness and our works are not. So because our student population is higher now, we have a chance to generate 3 academic works from our student population alone. And if we get to 2,000, we might actually have the opportunity to generate another one. And we are attempting to get another one through a research grant. So we could very well reach this in our next academic year. So there are a couple of things I want to take care of off the bat. So we're going to do some work here. I'm going to slow this down because I mentioned that I wanted to have some sort of collector extension down here. So the traffic is going to be an issue, and I'm thinking that we're going to convert a set of these local roads into a couplet of one-ways, and that will, the effect of that will be that ultimately we have a collector through here, even though it doesn't look like a 4-lane collector. So I'm going to go ahead, grab that collector road, and we'll turn all of our snap twos on. and we'll find a path that we can make. And I'm noticing something. We're not respecting our terrain. We should look at that real quick. And you see that there are some significant grade differences here. So what we're going to do is we'll grab this height. We'll use our slope tool. Right mouse click at the top terrain, and then the terrain we want to get to, we will left click and pull towards it. Now what that does is create a nice slope for us. Now we have a nice gradual transition. So the primary reason for this, we're using a lot of eminent domain right now. It's a little bit of a mulligan. That's okay. We're going to disconnect a few things, and I want this to function as a couplet. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and extend this over, and then we'll use our curved road tool to line up with this and curve right in. So now what we need to do is add priority here and change our directionality. So I'm going to turn these into one-ways, and this is really important. I don't want people to have to swap over, so rather than having, I want to pay attention to the directionality of the roads and make sure that this is a sweeping movement. Now, one of the unfortunate things, without Traffic Manager, I can't set these lanes, so they will be able to U-turn back around, and we won't use both lanes this way, but it'll still work quite effectively. And then we're going to end our couplet here. And truthfully, with this, I don't even know that we need to have a couplet here anymore. So let's, or a one-way here, so we will convert this. And like I mentioned, we are going to focus on transit in the next one. We might do a little bit now, or maybe not now, but towards the end of the episode, but this is a good start. So let's get this road back in here. So I came in as close to a 90 as I could, and then this one I am going to reroute to connect up with the other local road so that this doesn't become a cut through. There we go. And I'm going to dezone these. We're going to want to do something a little bit more significant here and give this some more thought. So this is the university using eminent domain to give a little bit more thought to their campus. The other thing I want to do is eliminate some of these trees here. Got a lot of them. Because we are once again going to need to give this some more thought. And then we have a couple of roads that now are stubs. That's okay. We can leave them as stubs. That's not a problem. We don't need to connect everything. If we wanted to make some sort of connection, what I could see having merit would be some sort of pedestrian connection. So let's turn off our road guidelines, use our grid, and connect in that way. And there we go. Now we have a nice pedestrian connection through here, and that'll work quite well. So I made sure not to connect these so that it doesn't steal the connection from the road. So at least now we have that connection. We can zone in between here if we want to. So that is going to help our traffic flow quite a bit. We're at 86%, which is pretty darn good. I think that we could even improve that as time goes on. So now looking at our university, wow, our student population is massive. We need academic works. We're going to get there. We need our attractiveness up. So the way that we get our attractiveness up is adding more buildings. And some of the buildings that add the most, if you take a look, we've got 2 sports facilities, and those add 240 towards our attractiveness. So I think that we could add a couple of sports facilities, some more dorms, and some other buildings to get this leveled up a little bit. So let's hop in here and see what we have available to us. So we don't have our liberal arts media lab, we don't have the dance club, we do not have Statue 2, and we do not have the School of Economics, but everything else is available to us, including some more athletic facilities. So I think it would be great to add a track and field stadium, and we'll back that out a bit. We're going to need to adjust our terrain. I'm not sure just how bad it is. It's not that bad. We'll be able to work with this. So what I'm going to do is steal some soil from over here, and we'll just bring it over here gently. So we're going to need more than that. That is not good enough. So I'm going to reload a bit. Come over here and steal from this area. To me, this is a rational place to steal it from. It's not that far. and this likely help us in the future anyway. So we've reloaded up. I will grade this so that it's a nice smooth slope over here, and eventually we'll forget that we even stole from over there. It's just fine. And now we can do the work of making this look a little bit nicer. So I just tried to make this a little less stark, give it some curves, and now we're going to feather it out. So I'm going to take my brush strength down a bit and use a mid-sized brush, and the main reason for that is if you get too extreme and go too quick, you can end up with a result that you're not pleased with, and I don't want that to be the case. And I'm trying not to get too close to that edge because you see what happens right here? The end of that asset pokes through. And then at the very end I hit it with the large brush to try to really maximize our smoothing effect there. And that looks really nice in my opinion. This looks like a natural grade. It's not too extreme, and if we needed to poke a road or a path through here, we could do that effectively. Looking good. So let's see what this did to our campus. This took our attractiveness up to 1344, so we're getting closer, but we're not there yet. So let's keep working. I think baseball would be another nice addition to this area. So what we're going to do is send a road down here, and then we're going to slope down. And we'll make our connection. We have to have our road guidelines on for this. Got a nice connection there. So I wanted that connection because we're going to place our baseball stadium down here. So we're going to need to smooth things out again. So we'll pick our terrain that we want to work with. Have to eat into some of our newly terraformed land, which is always a little bit painful. And I'm going to need to pause this for a moment because I'm going to take out the power lines. And that is not going to allow us to just place it right there. So we'll add an access road here. And then we should be able to place this along the access road. Now you'll see that I need to cut away a bit more. That's okay. We can do that. In fact, let's move our strength up. We'll fix this at the end. And I gave that a bit of separation from the road so that if we have any lumpies or bumpies, we can fix them. All right. So I'm going to take this back, and then we're going to terraform as best we can. Some of this is going to be really challenging, and there are ways that we can address that as well to make it look a little bit nicer. Unfortunately, none of those things are actually going to help us in terms of raising the score of our university for its attractiveness, but it will make us feel better about the aesthetic of our university. And that's what to me, that's as much of an issue as anything else. Okay, and this is where a bit of patience can do wonders for you. So I spent quite a bit of time trying to make this look good, and it's moving in a direction that I'm really appreciating. I think it's looking better every time I make a small adjustment. That said, at some point you gotta know when to let good enough be good enough and quit playing with it, because it's just sometimes it's counterproductive to continue to play with it. And this is a spot where this is about as good as I can get it. The rest will have to be landscaping. So the other thing that we want to do, we're dropping off a bit here. So I'm going to go ahead and steal the terrain height from this, pull it on through, and then we will use our curved road tool to make our connection. We'll upgrade that in the process. So we're also going to need new power lines. So I'm going to add this over here, and I'm going to extend that through just to be safe. And then we've got water there, but we're missing water here, interestingly. So let's make that connection. There we go. And then one more over here, underneath our road, where it belongs. Okay, and we can get things moving again, which is a good thing because we still are going to struggle to get that academic work. Let's see where this takes our campus attractiveness. It doesn't do anything because it's not within our campus. So let's pull this inside. Now Yumble University has a baseball field, and we are moving again in the right direction. But we need to do more. So I see an opportunity to make an outdoor study hall area. So I'm thinking that right here could be an interesting place. I've been thinking that this would be neat to have paths through anyway, And so we could have this study area be a little bit off campus, a little bit more secluded, maybe available to some of these off-campus students. So adding that building improves us a bit, but it's still not where we need to be. So let's add some paths through here, and then we can add some statues in this area. So to do that, I want the road guidelines on, because I want to steal these road guidelines. You can see I can go right through the road here and make the connection. I'm going to back that out a bit, and you're going to see why in just a moment. And the grid seems like it's throwing me off here a little bit, but I can't seem to steal that snap to. It disappears on me. Got it. All right, there we go. So I want to back this off just a bit so that I can turn off road length and road guidelines and get this to butt up really close. That said, if we want this to actually be a working crossing, we're going to need to upgrade some of these roads. And you see that it's not giving me a node where I need it. So what we're going to do is just add a connection here temporarily. We'll upgrade this, remove that connection, and now there we go. A nice connection to a pedestrian crossing. That was exactly what I was hoping for. So I pulled that to be a bit closer too, and now we are going to turn on some of our guidelines again, or all of them, and try to make some logical connections through this area. It's not going to exactly mirror what's going on over here, but that's okay. So these are logical connections. You can get to each of the different places on campus, and that's the goal. So the other thing, I mean, we could do the exact same thing over here with our connections. That might be helpful. But at the same time, it's probably not the end of the world if we don't. Yes, it is. So we're going to do it. So let's just add in a couple of nodes. And now we can add these connections back, again with only angles, so we can pull these as close as we can. There we go. Nice, clean connections. Probably should downgrade this one so that we have connections here as well. So, and you might wonder why. What's the point? There's nothing there. We should add something. So I'm thinking that it might be nice to have a bookstore here. Generally, university bookstores will also sell merch and gear for the athletic facilities. So we'll add one of these over here. It'll serve double duty. It will help out the students that are going to these colleges over here. And it will sell merch for all the stadiums that we've added. There we go. Looking good. Need water pipes? We will do that. And our power does extend there, so we're fine. So interestingly, I'm looking, let's see. Our power availability is teetering, as is our water's okay, but let's go into here. I don't want to focus on that right now, so we're just going to raise our budget. We'll go to 125 for these. Setting day and night, and that's more of a me thing than a you thing. The main reason for that is I do a lot of city tours at night, and I don't want there to be a blackout, so we'll get that set up. All right, so we've got that going, and our attractiveness, we're getting closer. We're 300 away. Feels like we're chipping it away, and we're going in a positive direction. So let's add some statues. So I just plopped one over here temporarily. Let's add that over here to add some symmetry, and then we will add a few more things. So I couldn't snap to this node, so what I ended up doing is adding this in the center and making a new node by extending it once I had a path. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. So that'll connect these two, and that should get us a little bit closer. We're getting there, we're getting there. And I think another thing that could be valuable would be dorms. So we already have a number of dorms, but there's no harm in adding just a couple more. But we are going to need to look at our terrain, because look at what that's done. I'm curious to see how close that gets us. Not that close. So maybe that won't be our focus. So another library could be beneficial over in this area now that we have some more academic buildings. That said, there's not really a convenient place to put it. So I think we should start thinking about this neighborhood down here that we're going to develop. And what I want to do is steal some terrain cues, and we'll use that and let that be our guide. So just going to add a couple of roads that we will use to mirror our terrain. And we're going to try to really conform to the terrain in a significant way. So I'm going to pause this for a moment as I go through and eliminate some of these roads, because I want to smooth the terrain in this area. So I'm going to start out by working this back road up. So we've got this rock here. This is going to be a rock that we take out, quite unfortunately. I am going to back this road up just a bit, I think, to really get it tight. And this is not going to be a clean, easy connection. We're going to need to wrap this around. And then from there we can try to use our road guidelines. It's still not loving it. There we go. Just have to grab the other side. And then over here, we're only going to use our angle so we can start the turn. And then we can finish it with our curved road tool once we have enough of an angle. There we go. And now we're going to round the bend and then meet up over here, but we're going to need to do some terraforming. So I'm going to grab this height with a medium brush. And I'll move my strength up. Right mouse click here, left mouse click here, slope it right up. Now I can pull that right through. Nice, smooth connection. So I want to try to mirror this as best I can, and it's going to be a real trick. But there are some places that it's going to be a little bit easier to do this. I'm going to give these slightly larger lots. I'll add one tile in between, and in the straight segments, it's going to be really easy to follow my road nodes. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. And you see that as I'm doing this, it's getting pretty simple to just follow my road guidelines and make perfect connections. Now the more difficult ones are going to be the ones where I rounded the corner a bit, but we'll be able to get those too. And if they're not 100% right, I'm not going to be overly concerned. And like that one, that's a little bit off, but it's a much better junction. So we're going to use our freeform tool here to mirror this. And you see that it's finding that perfect node spot. And then we just freeform this right over. Now this is going to be the tricky one. And truthfully, I might just go a little bit rogue with this one because I don't know that it's worth trying to make it perfect. I can eyeball it and get it pretty close. There we go. That's not perfect, but it's perfectly fine in my book. So let's add in some breaks here so that people can actually traverse these blocks, because they're very long lengths right now. Because there are no breaks at all, so that would make sense that they're very long lengths. And now I'm going to use the old grid in the city to try to reestablish things. So let's bring this in at a 90 and then make a straight connection straight through. We'll do the exact same thing here. Now you see that the grid begins to conform with what we had before. Now I could try to make this here, this connection here, but that's straight up a hill. So you see that we're respecting our terrain here. If we're going to do anything, it's going to be a pedestrian connection, and we're going to use our terraforming paths to try to make that connection. And even that's not very good. So it just might not be super feasible without a bit of terraforming up front. So what we'll do is grab this terrain height, grab it from here, slope it as best we can, feather it out a bit, and then we'll give it another go. That's considerably better. So I will be able to live with that and sleep at night, knowing that I've done okay work. So there we go, another connection into the neighborhood. And if we can, I'd love to make another connection through here, because that would be a long walk. There we go. Nice connection, just a way to get through here. It would also be nice to have a connection up here. We're going to need to really look at our terrain though and figure out what we can actually do. That's not totally horrible, but I don't love it. We're going to try one more time. This one just might not be possible due to the terrain height issues that we have here. And I just clicked on the building so that I could figure out exactly where it ends. And Now we're going to turn our road guidelines back on and make our connection. Yeah, this one is looking like it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to try to terraform around this. If I can't get it, we'll just have to go without that connection. Actually, it's not looking all that bad. It's very steep, but I think I can live with this. Okay, and we'll accept a bit of wonkiness here just to have a better path connection. I think that it's worthwhile. So I'll do my best to terraform and smooth this out and make it look a little bit better, but in some spots, I think it's okay to have a little bit of a rough edge, and we will landscape up there to try to hide a bit of that. There we go. So we at least have a good pedestrian connection through here. I'm noticing that we don't have water here, so that could be... This could be one of our issues. So we'll make that connection. Let's see if this gets our attractiveness where it needs to be. Getting closer. We're still a little ways away. So the library. We could even add a dorm back here for graduate students. So I'm just doing my best to get this in a place where the terrain heights won't be so extreme that they're unreasonable. And it definitely takes some work if you're going to terrace like I am. Okay, so this to me feels significantly better. We're going to fix some of our terrain madness. And I might even go ahead and fix this path connection. We'll do some terraforming to make that a nicer connection. We're already over here doing a bunch, so why not get it right? There we go. That's looking much better. So we'll get some water pipes back here. And we're less than 100 away from our goal in terms of our attractiveness. So we've reached our next year and we have enough academic works. If we can get 48 more attractiveness, we are going to hit the next level. So that's really exciting. We don't need much to get there. So I'm going to cheese it a bit. And what I'm going to do, we do have our laboratories now, so maybe I don't have to cheese it at all. I wanted to add the laboratories back in this general area. Let's go ahead. And I'm going to relocate this building, the art club. Let's move that back here behind the dorms. I was trying to find a place where maybe it wouldn't be so bad with terraforming, but unfortunately it's just a sloping area. Let's see if I pull this back at all, if that improves things. Nope, not in the slightest. Well, that's not too bad. So I wanted to move that because we're going to level this out as best we can and add in our laboratory back here. And that will be exactly what we need to reach our next level. There we are. All we've got to do is hold this. So we can take some of our academic policies and lower them. We don't need to keep paying for this. And we have sponsorship deals now, which will decrease the upkeep cost of our varsity sports by 8%. We're going to do that. So if we maintain this, we're just over on our attractiveness. We will unlock level 5, which is exactly what we wanted to do. So at that, let's clean this up and make this look a little bit nicer on our way to becoming a 5-star university. So there are going to be some places where we just unfortunately have a little bit of ugliness. I'm going to eliminate these power lines. We're not going to need those anymore. And that wave of unhappiness was not because I got rid of the power lines. In fact, I think most people would love that. It's that we lost the sporting event, unfortunately, which is sad. Let's see how we are doing. We're not dedicating any funding to this, so it's not surprising. So what we might want to do is just pump this up. So what I'm going to do is we have enough money, especially now that we have varsity sports. We're going to increase our coaching staff size. Now each one of these is 1,000. So you need to keep that in mind. Cheerleading, on the other hand, is considerably less. It increases the sports attractiveness, so that actually increases our campus attractiveness slightly. So that's helpful, and it'll help us win more. If we wanted to pay for more coaches, we could certainly increase this. maybe we'll get it up to 10. So we are losing money, but as we win games and have attendance, things will improve for us. And look at all of these cars. You see them streaming out of here. And that makes me think, you know, it would be really nice to have some pedestrian crossings here. So we're going to prioritize pedestrians and add a crossing right here so that if there's a pedestrian, they can cross the road. That's nice. That's real nice. So let's go ahead and add some paths through here and get our university feeling a bit more complete. So what we're going to do, I thought it might be nice to create a forested area through here. So we're going to do that. But first, we're going to finish our neighborhood connection. So we've got a nice connection into our neighborhood. These grids are just throwing me off. So sometimes you've got to start with the guidelines off and turn them on, and it still did the same thing. So we're just going to live with it. So what I want to do through here, we're just going to have some meandering paths through here once we establish a connection around here. So I'm going to turn grid on. We'll have a straight path. You can see that this is part of that asset. So we'll come around here, add a path connection. We're in the asset again. Turn the grid off. Keep our angle on. Now we can at least make that connection fairly cleanly. So let's add in a meandering path that comes through here. So we're going to use our freeform tool and our road guidelines. There we go. Very nice. And then we'll add one more along the side of the commencement facility. I wanted to be really careful with that connection because those break, and then you'll end up with kind of a flat, weird connection. And there we go. We will add in some landscaping here to make this feel a bit better in just a bit. So our population threshold is something that we are going to struggle to reach. And I have heard in the comments that you guys believe there should be some high density around here for housing. And I agree. But we need to make sure we're placing it in a manner that is responsible. So I want to turn on our sound. We're going to dezone a bit here. And this will be a pocket of high density. Then we are going to step that down as we reach the existing neighborhood. Actually, why don't we go a step beyond that, and we'll extend our commercial corridor. And then here, I don't really think that we have any option besides having commercial because of the proximity to some of the athletic events. We're going to leave this. I'm going to actually relocate this facility right there so we can have a tree buffer separating the university from the neighborhood. And then back here, I will add a little bit more housing. I think we're far enough away, there's some separation. This is a collector, so I'm going to put the commercial right there. We'll leave this. We'll need to add a significant barrier there if we want this to be at all an attractive place to live. So we have some residential uses here. We'll continue those. And then over here, we'll switch to some commercial uses. I'd love for this to be a leisure district, but we just don't have the ability to create those right now with the DLC that we have available to us. So instead, we will just have a normal commercial district. I am going to extend some commercial uses down here, and we have basically equal non-need for both. So it's just something that we're adding, even though it's not well warranted. And then along here, I think we're just going to leave it an empty corridor with some nice tree-lined roads. And down here, we're going to have a whole bunch of residential. We will target some higher density residential near our paths. And then we're going to add a couple of small nodes of commercial activity within the neighborhoods. They're not going to be significant, but they'll be just enough that someone could grab a bite to eat. And now we'll round it off with some residential uses, some low density residential. So I think that we're going to hold off from zoning back there because we do not want to create a bunch of terrain issues. But down here, we're totally fine. And I'm going to pause it for a moment. We do not have water pipes yet. We'll need to take care of those. And now we'll place our water pipes underneath the roads. Turn off all of our snap twos for that. And then fortunately, in a bit of unintentional game cheesing, we don't need to put water pipes underneath that road because we are we're not zoning along the top of the hill there, so we're totally fine. Perfect. Love it. So at this point, soon enough, we are going to have a 5-star campus. We should start decorating. So I want to tree line a number of these paths. I also want to leave some mass transit. And I think that this would warrant subway connections, metro connections. So we're going to add one at each of the sports facilities. It'll just be a nice underground line. We're not going to get overly fancy with it. We need more transit than this, but this will at least get us going. Again, I'm using my mixture of freeform and the regular road tool, the regular curved road tool. And we're not going to send this out to the amusement park. We're just going to make a connection here and force a transfer. And we could have probably added another connection here if we really wanted to, but this should be close enough to the dorms that anyone that wants to get here and get to campus using the metro underground should be able to do so. So I think this could be a very valuable line for us. Let's do a bit of decorating and make this feel more like a campus area. So what I'm going to do is, this is tropical. We're going to make it feel tropical. You can do any number of things here. I'm going to line some of this with larger trees, leave in a number of large gaps, and I just want it to feel very well manicured. It's a university campus, and that is exactly what you'd expect. You could put fences in. I'm not going to. That's personal preference and just a kind of a time thing. You'll need to dedicate a great deal of time if you want to make those look great, which is fine. We can also just do this and make it look very nice too. Now on the side of this stadium area right here, I want to add in some larger trees, and we are going to use foliage as a sound buffer. And I want to make a targeted pedestrian connection through here as well. So lots of different needs through here. Interestingly, I missed a water pipe over here as well, so we'll take care of that. Okay, and that sound barrier is effective. You can see that it improved things over here. So we want to do the exact same thing along here, but less extreme. We're just going to have a row of trees along here. So loads of symmetry with our landscaping. And to me, that makes it feel a lot more realistic. You'd expect that there's a lot of care taken here. Okay, and right here I wanted to create the feeling of walking through a forest or running through a forest. I think that we were able to accomplish that by having ample landscaping back here. And then that breaks down as you come towards the campus, which I really like. Over here, we are going to get rid of all of these rocks and landscaping and open up this view here. And we have reached level 5. We're going to check that out in just a moment. Okay, so level 5, we finally have unlocked our School of Economics, which is going to help increase tax revenue without upsetting people. So that's awesome. So I think that we are going to try to place it right here. We're going to need to look at our terrain though. That's not going to work without some modification. So let's go ahead. We'll steal this terrain height down here. Pull this fairly starkly through here. Then we'll fit this. We're going to use some eminent domain on homes. Probably fairly rational, considering what is going in here. We've got some lumpies and bumpies. It is pretty ugly. We're going to need to try to fix that. And truthfully, our best, what might work best for us is a bit of landscaping. Again, even with our buildings, I'm trying to create a sense of symmetry as best I can. There are some areas like this though where the path is just really a challenge. Let's see if there's anything that we can do to improve this. We'll take that building and we'll move the path connection. So that's a little better. It's not perfect, but we can fix that with landscaping. And it really makes me wonder what else we could have done. I don't think that there was much, unfortunately. So we'll try to cover some of this up with some rough foliage. I find that this is one of the more effective ways to cover some of this up, especially the larger ones, because they can extend into some of these buildings a bit. But even the smaller ones, you can do some significantly good work. Maybe the way to handle this is to actually make this a feature of this area. Some of this rough landscaping. And then we'll again add some trees to blend this a bit. And now we can add some of our homes back. And we can landscape behind those to add some separation between the campus and these homes. And I would presume that they would want it to be significant. Okay, so the main campus is mostly decorated. We're going to do a little bit more work over here. And we should be good to go. Okay, so we have done it. We have landscaped our entire college. We've got it to 5 stars. The last thing that we have to do, if we want to do it, is go ahead and place our art gallery. So this provides 150 entertainment. It is massive. And I think that the only way that we could appropriately honor it, not the only way, but the way that I want to, is to make sure that it has a nice view of the water. So let's go ahead and add that now. We could do a lot to jazz this up. I'm just going to put a little bit of landscaping and call it, because at a certain point, you've got to know when to move on to your next project. And we know that time is just about now, but let's take a quick look at this. Look at that. Just wonderful. So I hope that you've learned a lot today, and I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. In this episode, we have gone through and taken our university, Yamble University, and made it a 5-star campus. We've got academic works, we've got tons of students, we've got an attractive campus, and it spans the whole length of the city, basically. We've got some passengers on our transit lines, so we're looking good there, and it didn't really impact our city's traffic flow in a negative way. We've incorporated it well into the surrounding area, in my opinion. But let me know what you think down in the comments, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Let's have a brief city tour. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you aren't subscribed, please consider doing so, and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I release new videos. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.